the instruction to keep the Sabbath is like all the other instructions that you're going to either learn to do well or you're going to fail and need forgiveness and
Mhm.
atonement for. So the question is, do you guys believe not keeping the Sabbath will cancel your salvation? I believe that if you're in ignorance about it, if you're a baby believer who got converted and 6 months, a year, and you haven't really learned what it means to walk in discipleship, and you get shelled by a foreign nation invading and you die, I think Yeshua's going to judge you appropriately. He's the judge, right? If you're going 30 years in your life reading the Bible and people keep telling you for years and years and years, hey, this is an eternal command, it didn't go away at any point. There's evidence of us keeping it in the kingdom when he returns. It says it's eternal. It's a part of our instructed behavior every week. And you keep saying, no, the Catholic Church changed it to Sunday, and I'm going by that. That's between you and Yeshua. Is it going to affect your salvation long term? We're not judges. We're not. I dare not take the place of my Savior to say, just because there's one part of your discipleship that you really struggle with as far as the instruction for a certain behavior, that's going to cancel out your entire salvation, the idea of you getting resurrected by Yeshua. Unfortunately, I just say that to whom much is given, much is expected. So I think there is an obligation to you if you know the truth, and you may not be, you just may be asking for someone else in general, but I think there is an obligation if you know the truth. But at the same time, let's not put ourselves in a position of judgment over others who are still learning in a discipleship process, because many times that process is different for everyone. It's slower for some, it's faster for others. So I just would be careful not to stand in a place of judgment on them. They ultimately, their salvation will be determined by Yeshua, and he's going to evaluate every word and deed in their life, and whether he thought they were genuine or not. So what are your thoughts?
For me, this one, the scripture of "Do not curse the deaf, or put a stumbling block before the blind" always comes to mind for me, because for a lot of these people, I feel like there's a blindness there. There's some scales that need to be removed by the Father. The Father needs to help soften their hearts and push them through to seeing this, because I don't know how otherwise someone like my grandfather, per se, could study the Bible for 50 years and never see that the Sabbath didn't change. Now, my grandfather is one of the most faithful men I've ever known. He's one of the best examples of the love of Christ out of all the people in my whole life. My grandmother, my grandfather, I won't go to my grave, obviously, praising the fruit that I saw from them my whole life. That always, even before I understood the love of Christ, they showed it to me. And I always thought they showed it so much better than other people who claimed to be Christians. And that was before I even understood what his love truly was. Now, the way that I look at that is there has to be some kind of blindness there, that my grandfather just hasn't broken through that blindness and seen the specific thing about the Sabbath day. All these other things he's done, all this other fruit he's produced, all these other people he's led to the Lord and prayed for, like me. He prayed for me for 35 years, basically. And here we are, here I am now. So I can't sit here and say that not keeping the Sabbath is going to cancel someone's salvation. Again, Sean, for us, that's like Sean has explained, that's putting ourselves into the judgment seat and deciding which specific sin is going to keep a person out. Because I guarantee people keeping the Sabbath have other things that they
They
would
do
need to be
wonderfully.
answering for on
Yeah,
Judgment Day too.
yeah,
So
yeah.
let's
It's
all just be happy, be
I can
thankful.
I can understand how your grandfather can be a lifelong disciple and not and be sitting under bad teaching on a specific topic,
Mhm.
right? Because that's literally who I was
Yeah.
until 2015, or on the Sabbath issue was like 2014. And even then, even when I came to the full understanding in my heart of hearts, my gut, I was like, oh my goodness, the word says what it says,
Yeah.
right? It's pretty clear, and I should probably change my behavior. Even then, I was locked in a job,
Mhm.
financial restraints from being able to keep Sabbath the way it's instructed
Right.
for 2 years. You know what I'm saying? And for those 2 years, I was praying to the Father, help me get into a place to be able to keep your Sabbath faithfully and the way that you just detail it, right? And he finally answered that prayer, but it wasn't like, oh, overnight, here's a different job that's going to let you take Saturdays off and all these
Yeah.
feast days. You know what I mean? So it took time, but it was in my heart. I wanted to, and I was trying to figure out how do I organize my life in order to, right? So that I can still not go into destitution, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so there, yeah, I just 100%. And that in 2014 moment, it was like I kind of woke up to that specific issue,
Yeah.
as well as some other issues as well. But to me, it reminds me of Deuteronomy chapter 30,
Mhm.
which is what
Yeah.
we've talked about so much on this channel. Like, it seems to be a prophecy that is fulfilling itself in our time, in our culture, in our generation, believers are waking up everywhere to the fullness of discipleship, knowing that that this dispensation church replacement theology nonsense is just nonsense. It's not in the scriptures. It's preached as a tradition of men. It's an interpretation. And the actual printed text of the scriptures is very clear.
Yeah.
If you want to follow Jesus, you have to do his behavior. Well, he did the law of God, and it's not burdensome. His yoke is light. It's beautiful. It's easy. So with that, a lot of us have been waking up to being like, oh, wait a minute, all these things do apply. And it's like, it's not hard to do them. Like, if I can keep 4,000 laws just in my local governance, I surely can keep these 200 plus laws that might apply to me from the law of God, all of them. I was actually already inherently knowing we're good to do anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we all know, like, how many times have you, or at least in my life, because I've worked a lot at different jobs and worked hard at jobs and tried to be successful. And I just remember so many different people in my life would say, make sure you get some rest. Right?
Yeah.
That's all the Father's saying with Sabbath. Make sure you get some rest, right? Especially now in the dispersion when there's no active temple or priesthood and we're dispersed in the land of our enemies. He still wants us to get some rest. It's still a part of, this is how you live your life as a human, how I've created you. So with that said, I know we're elaborating on this a bit, but with that said, I believe that this is why we're seeing so many believers wake up, and they're not all waking up at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. And we do our best to wake others up, but just pray for them. This is what we constantly talk about: sowing the word and let the Father do the watering and the harvesting. Right.
Yeah.
It's just our job to sow it, and we got to sow it in love. Right. You don't take a seed. You're trying to like plant some, I don't know, plant a tomato vine or something. You don't pull the dirt aside, just throw it in there and elbow it like your WWE, and then just stomp the seed down in the ground and punch it a whole bunch of times. Get in there and grow. Get in there and grow. You don't do that, right? You gently put the seed in there and cover it back over and water it. You care and lovingly nurture it. So when Yeshua tells us that this in Mark 4:14, that a sower sows the word, we've got to be loving and gentle with that, right? We got to let our light shine so people can see our good behaviors and glorify our God, our Father in heaven. So not being Torah terrorists, and I'm not saying you're doing this, Ken, but we've seen this a lot with other people.
Yeah.
So we just want to be loving with how we sow the word with people and trust the Father's going to water it and then reap that harvest, because he literally says that in one of the parables. God is a master who harvests where he did not sow.
Yeah.
Because we're the ones out sowing and helping. We're the legs and the arms and the legs, right? So this is how the approach, anyway. This is the disposition, the mindset that I hope that we would all learn and be patient with our fellow brethren that are still in mainstream churches and are sitting under a lot of bad teaching. Just to remember that there was a moment where we were sitting under bad teaching too, and we thought we were right, going to a specific denomination and whatever they taught. And then there was a moment where we were woken up by the Father as well. I truly believe I was still just as saved before I woke up as I was after I woke up, right? But even when let's take that word woke up out of here. When I had bad theology, I still had a genuine heart to know God and do what's right. I just had bad discipleship training, bad theology. So in the same way that the thief on the cross who just repents on his last dying words and Yeshua tells him he's going to get resurrected and be with him in the kingdom, in that same way, there's a lot of still Christians out there who want to do what's right. They believe the Father and the Son. They believe Jesus is the Messiah, and they want to do what's right. They're just sitting under bad teachers. If they die, I truly believe the Father will be very merciful to them, considering all the situations. But there's no, it's just, if we are given more as a group of people that have now kind of come to a fuller understanding of the word, well, then we must lovingly turn and share that with our brethren who are still straggling. You know what I'm saying? Remember Exodus 17? Remember when the Amalekites, they came and they attacked the Israelites coming out of Egypt? And it says they came up behind at the rear of the encampment and attacked the old and the weak and the straggling.
Yeah.
So then Joshua and Moses turn around and take the entire full force of the army and fight the Amalekites to defend the weak and the straggling. So this is hopefully a metaphor where I would encourage everyone listening to us when we talk about Torah observance to be that loving, protective force that's willing to fight the deception for those who are straggling, as opposed to trying to turn around and condemn them. You know what I'm saying? Moses and Joshua didn't turn around and say all the stragglers being attacked by the Amalekites, what are you guys being weak for? Pick up the pace. Come on, right? Defend yourselves. Get better. Be better. No, they just assembled the army and went and protected them. This is the heart that I hope we can adopt for those who are still in the mainstream churches who need better instruction on how to follow Jesus. So sorry for the long answer, but
Yeah, as Paul talks about,
clearly you've hit my passionate topic.
as Paul talks about in Colossians, it's about seasoning our words properly according to who we're speaking to. So